Hi, my name is Hailey Leek and I'm the Census Coordinator for the Salt Lake City Mayor's Office. I'm here to talk about the 2020 Census, what it is, and why we do it. SLC Counts is Salt Lake City's effort to make sure all our community members are counted in 2020. And I'm here to talk about why it's so important to participate. Everyone in the census counts equally. The census is really about political empowerment because everyone counts regardless of immigration status, income, age, gender, race, or ability. Everybody can participate in the 2020 census. SLC Counts is working in partnership with the Census Bureau to support participation and get Salt Lake City residents to participate. We are not in charge of conducting the census or hiring for jobs. We're really here to engage the community and answer questions you have and support other census outreach efforts. So what is the census? The census is a national survey conducted by the United States Census Bureau once every 10 years. Fun fact, the first census was done under the guidance of Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson back in 1790. The first census looked at our newly established United States of America to see who lived in our new country and where everybody was living. In 2020, we get so much valuable data that local governments and businesses use for community development and growth. The census is part of your civic duty to participate, just like voting, which we have the opportunity to do a couple times each year. The census only happens once every 10 years, so it is your right and civic duty to participate, but it's also required by law. So why the census matters is because local government from the federal, state level are making important decisions about you. If you're not counted, you're not represented in the data for the next 10 years. Census results will impact Utah in three major ways. Power. Census data determines how many seats our state gets in the U.S. House of Representatives. We currently have 4 seats, but back in the 2000 census, we missed gaining a 4th congressional seat by 856 people. We did not get a 4th seat until the 2010 census. In 2020, we're not projected to get a new one, but maintain our 4th seat. But again, that's why participation is so important, to maintain our 4 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. Census data also draws political districts and boundaries. Utah is a very gerrymandered state in the sense of a representative is speaking for someone in Salt Lake and St. George. So if you don't like gerrymandering, participate in the census. Help our state redraw our congressional districts and boundaries. The second impact of the census for Utah is access to public services. So census data determines where schools, hospital, roads, child care centers, senior centers, and fire stations are built in our communities. This is a really important point because I like to talk about access to public education. So, trivia question for you. How many schools are on the west side of Salt Lake City, if you consider the west side west of I-15? The answer is actually 0. We have 0 public high schools on the west side of Salt Lake, which means a lot of our youth are bused up to different communities on the west side. So if you are a west side resident and you'd like to see more public high schools in your community, then participate in the census. Tell our government that you are here and that you matter. Census data also helps us prepare for emergencies. So that's why participation is also very important. The third reason the census is important is because it provides Utah with access to federal money. So Utah receives $5.6 billion a year from the federal government. And that money supports important programs from Medicaid to free and reduced lunch, Head Start, and Pell Grants for our college students. All the money that we get goes back to our community. So again, that's why the census is important. So it determines power, access to public services, and money. In the 2020 census, there are 280,000 Utahns who have the potential to be undercounted. And that means a loss for our communities. So every person not counted in the census, we lose $1,086 per year over 10 years. So think of it in terms like this. If you are a Rose Park resident and you decide not to participate in the census, over the next 10 years, that's $10,860 taken from your community, taken from projects that could improve your roads, your parks, your access to health care. All that money goes if you don't participate in the census. So it's really important that you do a little bit more research about the census and how it directly impacts your community and make that decision to participate. So the populations that are been historically undercounted in the census and have the potential to be undercounted again in 2020 are immigrants, people of color, children under 5 years old, low-income households, people experiencing homelessness, students, and renters. So this big population who don't participate are undercounted, which means federal money and dollars go to a smaller group of people who are homeowners and non-Hispanic whites. So the power is not distributed equally. So that's why, again, participation is very important. So census data must reflect our communities. The west side of Salt Lake City has historically been undercounted. And so in 2020, the city's goal is to increase participation of West Side community members, of our DACA undocumented community members, and students. So the important question, how to get counted. First step is participate. You have the option to complete the census online, by mail, or phone. This is the first census that is conducted online. We're calling it the first modern census. And the second important step is to encourage family, friends, and neighbors to participate. If you learn important information about the census and how it impacts your communities, share that information. Let folks know that they can access the census online and they can go to their local library or community center to complete it. If you don't complete the census by mid-April, a census taker will be coming to your door. So, what is the timeline of the census? The census will actually be available come March 12th, 2020. About 80% of Salt Lake City residents will complete the census online. You'll get a postcard in the mail with a special identification number that allows you to go online and access the survey. If you lose that postcard, you're still able to do it online. You would just use your address. For the other 20% of Salt Lake City residents who will get the paper survey, they are able to still do it online through their address as well. But March 12th is when the census officially kicks off. April 1st is Census Day, and this is the day we're trying to capture what our country looks like in 2020. So for instance, if you're planning on moving from Rose Park to Glendale, you need to think about where you will be come April 1st. If you're moving in with new roommates, for the parents out there that have split custody of their children, where even if the child spends 50-50 between each household, wherever that child is on April 1st is where they should be counted. So April 1st is that marker. It's that point in time we're trying to see what our country looks like in 2020. April through May, if you haven't responded to the census online, you will get a paper survey in the mail. If you haven't responded to the census at all by mid-May, that's when census takers will come to your door to try to collect that information in person. So if you don't want to knock on your door, complete the census by April 1st. So what questions are on the census? There are 9 questions, and these questions are really for data purposes. A lot of them are used to uphold anti-discrimination bills and also just to see how we are changing and growing in 2020. So the 9 questions are name, date of birth, number of people living or staying in your household on April 1st, relationship of each person, whether home is rented or owned, sex, age, race, and Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin. There is no 10th question on the census, which means there's no citizenship question. The Supreme Court blocked the Trump administration from adding a question that asked if a person was a citizen or not. That question is unnecessary, so it was not included. So what languages are on the census? On the paper form that is mailed to households, the census is in English and Spanish. However, if you want to do it online or through the phone, there's 14 other languages you can access. If one of these languages aren't available, you can request a video or printed guide in 59 other non-English languages. Still, if the census doesn't have the language you speak, they can they can and will find an interpreter for you to complete the census. So another big question is, are your responses safe? Yes. Your information is legally protected by the United States Constitution. No one can access your personal information, not the FBI, CIA, ICE, the IRS, or your landlord employer. No one has access to that information for 73 years. The census is really for data purposes, to see where community members are living and see where, the new trends in our society, like are students living with parents longer, are in-laws living with their children. So it's really just to understand our population better. Another important thing that we have to talk about is how to avoid scams in the 2020. So online, in person, or through the phone, these are some things to be aware of. So if the Census Bureau will never ask you for a social security number, a bank or credit card number, money or donations, anything on behalf of a political party, any passwords, or your mother's maiden name. If you get a census that is asking you any of this, it's not a real one. So please protect your information and be aware of scams that could happen in 2020. So Salt Lake City's call to action to our community is participate. Make sure you and your family are counted by April 1st. It's also your job to stay informed. Check out the Census Bureau's website or Salt Lake City's website for more information on the census, why certain questions are asked, and what the data is used for. And finally, protect your information. Don't be giving out account numbers, social security numbers, or other personal information to non-Census Bureau employees. The census does not ask the citizenship question, and it will not ask for any type of money. So share that information, and if you see false information circulating in your community or online, you're able to report that to the Census Bureau at rumors@census.gov. Finally, if you want to stay in the know, please visit slc.gov/census or slc.gov/censo for our Spanish website, and you're welcome to email census2020@slcgov.com with questions. So that's our piece about the census and why it matters. We hope that you participate and you stay engaged. 2020 is an important year for our nation. We have a presidential election, we have the census, and we have the 100th anniversary of the woman's right to vote. So now's an important time to get engaged, civically engaged, community engaged, and make sure you participate in 2020.